Hey folks, welcome. This is Gently Chaotic Knits and my name is Emily. I live in Seattle, Washington with my husband Nofus and our pup Norman. And normally on this channel I post video podcasts which are mostly about what I've been knitting and sometimes other crafting that I've been up to. But this video is a little bit different. This is actually my second attempt at this video. So it's gonna be even better than the first time because I have like a whole practice run under my belt. It's great. But I actually, I don't know if you've noticed or not, but I have a new, if you have watched my videos before, I have a new camera this time. So I'm hoping for better video and audio quality. I'm really excited about it. And based on my first trial run, I think it's gonna be way better in lots of ways. My parents really lovingly and thoughtfully got me this gift over the holidays, and I'm really excited about it. I think the zooming and everything is going to be so much better, but I did record a whole video a couple days ago and I had the camera in the wrong setting and I did not record audio. So that is why I'm here doing this again, take two. And you know what, that happens. I remember I was reflecting with my husband about like my very first ever podcast episode and all the things that went wrong and like trying to figure out the camera and all of that, and then like eventually being able to record it and get it posted and everything. And you know what, it's just like growing pains, you know, it's just, I got a new camera, I'm excited about it, and this is just part of the process of figuring out how to use that camera. So but I'm here, I'm back again, and I'm really hopeful that you can hear me right now because if not, well, I don't know. If it doesn't work, maybe I would just post the whole video without audio. I probably wouldn't. I'm assuming that you can hear me now because I'm pretty confident. I'm very confident I have it on the correct setting. So, welcome. If you are new here, I'm excited to have you here. If you're returning, I'm also excited to have you here. I have not yet said what I'm going to talk about in this video. So my last video was all about the stuff I knit in 2022. So all of the garments that I knit, I talked about in that video, and I thought that was really fun to just go through them all. But also I mentioned then, and I've been thinking about setting goals for the next year, like what am I wanting to knit next year. And so I went back actually and I was watching, I did a video similar to this at the end of 2021 where I talked about how I did on my 2021 goals and what my goals were for going into 2022. And so I thought it was a good time to reflect on 2022 as a whole, what my goals were, how I feel like I met them, and then also talk a little bit about the goals that I have going into 2023. But also something I did in that video last year, or I guess end of 2021, that I wanted to do again, which I think is really fun, is just go through all the sweater quantities that I have in my stash and talk about what my plans are for them, or maybe get some ideas from you all about like what you think I should knit with them, like what should I cast on first, and just, coming off of, I guess I haven't shared about this on my YouTube channel yet, but I got stuck in Oklahoma. So I traveled back to Oklahoma for the holidays. That's where I have my family. And I got stuck there a couple extra days because I got the flu, flu A, which was a huge bummer. It was not a bummer to have extra family time. That was actually a silver lining to it all, but it did suck to have the flu. I was pretty down and out for a while, and then I didn't end up getting to come back home to Seattle until 3 or 4 days later because I wasn't feeling great. I didn't feel like flying, and I also really did not want to infect other people on my plane with the flu, so I wanted to be really careful about that and make sure that I was responsible about that. So took some extra time, but that has delayed my kind of getting back into a routine for the year, and so I'm a little bit behind. I know today is, I don't even know where my phone is. It's, I think, January 12th, I think it's January 12th. Today is a Friday, I believe. So whichever Friday in January is closest to January 12th is the day that it is today. And so I was hoping to, well, I mean, I did record this a couple days ago. So really I was hoping to record it even before then. And that just was not in the cards for me because I'm just a little bit behind on everything because of that. So getting back into a routine, going back to work, everything, I've been a little bit delayed. But I'm here now. I think I've got the camera on the right setting. I've got all of my yarn I want to talk about. I want to reflect on my goals from last year, and I just am excited to kind of go through it. So hopefully this will go even better than the previous time because I had a practice run. So now I know exactly how I want it to go and what I want to say and everything. I should always do this. I should just do a rehearsal, right? No, that would take way too much time. So I won't be doing that, but at least we can benefit from it this time. So let's get into it. Let's talk about what my goals were for 2022. And then I'll just like briefly go through whether I feel like I met them or not, and then I'll talk about what I want my goals to be for 2023. So if you are interested, also I will try to link my video so you can go and listen to me talk about my goals like at the beginning of the year. So basically the video counterpart that I did for this video like a year ago. And I'll link, and maybe if I can figure out how to put it on the screen here, I will do that as well. But just pulling from that video and also like just from the goals I set at that time. My first goal was to knit for joy. So like mostly spend more energy and effort knitting things that really made me happy, and follow that more so than like really getting myself into situations where I felt like I was knitting something because I felt pressure from myself or external pressure or whatever, like any kind of outside pressure to knit that thing that isn't just like knitting this is gonna make me happy, that I'm really enjoying it. And I do think that I did a lot better job of that in 2022. I think there were some things that I was able to let go that I think a previous version of myself wouldn't have been able to let go as well. So I definitely think I made some progress. I think there's more progress to be made, and I get like a lot of these goals that I set last year purposefully to some extent are like pretty difficult to quantify. So it's hard for me to say like, yes, I met that goal. But I do think I did a better job of that, and I think I purposefully knit things and cast things on that made me really happy and that I was really excited about. And so I do think I did a pretty good job of that last year. My next goal was to continue designing. So if you are new here, in addition to like knitting a ton and producing this podcast, I also have published a few knitwear patterns. I published my first pattern back in 2021. So at the time that I set this goal, I had only published one pattern, which is the stripy turtle tank that I released in the summer of 2021. And I published 4 new patterns in 2022. And it was a really big, at the time of setting this goal, I didn't know like what the rest of the year was gonna hold for me, but I ended up actually leaving my full-time job with the Mariners and back in April. And then spent a lot more of my time and energy pursuing knitwear design, and I started my job at La Mercerie, working part-time at a yarn store, which I think also just like really fed that creative energy for me as well. And so I think I nailed this goal of continuing to design and like kind of scratch that creative itch. I'm really happy with the designs that I published this year. I published the Almost Argyle sock pattern back in like February, March time. I published the slanty stripes at the end of August. I published Dad's Sweater in November, and then in collaboration with Coley from Paisley Knits, I published the Holiday Shawl this December. So 4 patterns is, I mean, I don't want to say it's more than I could have hoped for, because I think on some level this is like what I was hoping for, but I'm really, really excited about it and I'm proud of it, and all of those designs are really special to me and I'm really proud of all of them, and I want to continue to do more. So yeah, I think I definitely met that goal. My next goal was to make some blankets in 2022. I had in mind that I wanted to make a quilt, And I also had in mind this, I talked about this on the podcast before, but I really wanted to make a large woven and then felted wool blanket. And I did not make either of those. So this was definitely a goal that I failed. It's okay. I'm comfortable with that. I do think I made progress toward those goals. So while I didn't make a quilt, I did learn how to quilt, and I made, I think I have it over here, I made a quilted bag. So like, I did quilting. I did not, this is not a quilt, but I learned, like, it's, you know, progress, it's stepping stones. This is like, maybe the first step to making a quilt is like doing a practice project on a much smaller scale and learning how to quilt. So while I did not make a blanket or make a quilt, I feel good about the progress that I made toward that goal. And I also did not make the woven and felted blanket, but I did weave and felt a test square, and I have the yarn and everything ready for that one. So I think the tricky thing for me, and maybe this kind of goes hand in hand with like knitting for joy, and they're like almost at odds here, but it's hard for me to get really excited about some of this other stuff. And maybe this is just like a me problem, because I do really, really love to learn new things, but I also already feel like I don't have enough time for the stuff that I want to knit and the stuff that I already know that I love to do. And so it was really hard, like it's hard to find that balance between like wanting to try something new, but also like wanting to spend time doing the things that I already know like really make me happy. So blankets seem like a big time commitment, and this is something I am not gonna set a goal to make these blankets in 2023, because I think it's the kind of thing that like if I have the excitement and energy for it, it'll happen. But if I don't, like I don't want to just be disappointed at the end of the year that I didn't do it. You know what I mean? Like I don't necessarily need to put it on a list of goals. It's something I have in my mind, and if I want to make it, then I will. And if I don't, then that probably means I was doing something else with my time that I really enjoyed and made me happy. So that's, I guess, where I am with that one. I will, I guess, call that a goal failure. I did not meet that goal. Another goal of mine was to do a better job of tracking my yarn and knit. So mainly I think I had in mind doing that mostly in Ravelry. I wanted to do a better job of like having project pages on Ravelry for all my projects, logging all my stash and like taking photos of my stash, and using the queue feature in Ravelry to queue up all the projects that I already have in mind and have yarn for. And this is another one where I can say that I think I did a better job, but I think there's still a lot more room for growth here. I did, especially for my garments, I did a good job of like, I have project pages for them, and I did a good job of taking photos of my garments. I have good finished object photos for almost all my garments, and put those on my Ravelry pages as well. Earlier in the year, I did a better job of keeping track of my stash on Ravelry, and I kind of fell out of that toward the end of the year. I also was doing really thorough like yardage tracking for my projects, and I was posting about that monthly on Instagram for the first part of the year, and then I fell off of that also after August. I just had like a lot of stuff happening then, and I ended up like I had a lot of knitting deadlines for myself and design stuff that I was working on, and it ended up just being like too much for me to do at that time. So I think there's still a lot of room for improvement, and that's something I'll talk about again a little bit more when I talk about my goals for this year. But I do think that I improved. Like I at least did some more tracking and photos and that kind of stuff. So like I'm happy at least that I improved. Another thing I had on my goals for 2022 was to keep learning and growing, and I think I did this as well. I think maybe it wasn't as much in like, oh, I learned a new knitting technique, or I learned how to do this new skill or whatever. And there was definitely some of that, but I think I learned a lot more about like myself, my interests. I learned basically, for the most part, I don't want to knit with variegated yarns a ton. I really want to knit mostly with solids and tonals. I'll knit with variegated yarns for socks and sometimes for like shawls and stuff, but for the most part I really just want to knit with solid colored yarn. I think that was something that I really leaned into in 2022. I also took a ton of strides in my sewing, I think. Like I showed the bag that I sewed, this quilted bag, but I also sewed a couple of other bags. I sewed a skirt that I was really happy with. I sewed a couple of other things that maybe I wasn't as happy with, but like all helped me really improve my skills. So I think I took a lot of strides sewing. I learned a lot. I learned a lot about designing and the design process and collaborating with others, and I learned so much about that. I think about how much I've learned about like running a good test call and like testing group. I learned so much about how to do that well, and I'm sure there's still opportunities for growth in that as well, but I'm really happy with a lot of the strides that I took over the course of like the 4 patterns that I published last year. I think each one I learned a ton about myself, about my design process, about the testing process, about the publishing process. I built a website, and I still cannot believe that, and some of the really cool stuff that my friends and Nofis and everyone helped me with. Yeah, and I started working at a yarn store again, and I learned a lot about how best to help folks with their yarn purchases. I learned a lot about the business side of like a yarn store and a business like that, which has been really fun and exciting to me as well. I don't know, it's not as simple as like, okay, I learned intarsia, which is something that I learned back in 2021. And that's kind of, I think when I set this goal and I started at the beginning of the year, that was more what I had in mind, was like, okay, I'm gonna learn new techniques. But I think it was so much bigger than that for me this year. I think I learned a lot of big things about myself and about the craft and about designing and about like where I fit in all of that almost. I don't know, I think I also learned a lot about myself in terms of like sharing myself online in this podcast and on Instagram and just like social media generally. And I learned about my boundaries, and I learned about what I need to make sure that I can keep doing this and be okay. And I know that that feels a lot bigger than like learning new things, but I feel like that was a really big thing for me this year. So I would definitely say that continuing to learn and grow was absolutely a success for me this year. And there's, of course, forever, like this is never one that I'm gonna say like, okay, I'm done with, like checked this off of the list in 2022, it's over now. Like I will continue learning and growing for the rest of my life. I have absolute no doubt of that, but I feel like I took a lot of strides this year that I'm really proud of and excited about. So yeah, I think also I mentioned this a little bit. The only other thing I put on my list of goals for 2022 was to keep sharing everything here with you all and over on Instagram and just generally. I think having a community of folks is something I really love, and seeing that community really come together and grow, and like just all of you engaging and interacting with me and with each other has been so much fun. I have really loved that about this year, and that's something I'd love to continue next year as well, of course. I think I did a good job or a better job, maybe not a good job at all times, but most of the time, and I improved throughout the year at like sharing what felt good and comfortable to me at times when I was like comfortable doing that, and not putting too much pressure on myself to share everything all at once or like right away, or like have these expectations of myself or expectations that others have of me or whatever. Like I think I did a better job of that this year, and that's something I hope continues into next year as well. But like in the end, I do this because I really like it. Like I like to talk to you all about what I'm working on, and I like to hear from you all about your thoughts and what you're working on, and being able to connect with people about this thing that we all love is just one of my very favorite things. I really, really love it. So I love that about this last year, and I'm excited about more of that in 2023 as well. So that's kind of a wrap on my 2022 goals. So maybe let's talk about what goals I have for 2023. So we're already like a couple weeks into the year. So I've already, I guess, started to get going on some of these, but a lot of them I mentioned when I was going through 2022 goals. A lot of them are continuations of things that I set as goals last year and that I really want to continue. So one, of course, is like continuing knitting for joy. That is probably going to be on my list for the rest of my life. Like, I can't imagine a reason to not include that, and maybe that means that it's not a great thing to be like on a list of goals, but I really do want to continue thinking about that pretty actively throughout this year as well. I think there's still improvement I can make in not putting too much pressure on myself to knit things that I feel like I should knit, or like if I start a project and then I'm not feeling it anymore, I think there are a lot of times that I put a lot of pressure on myself, like, okay, you can't knit the next thing until you finish this thing. And while I think there's a place for that, because if I didn't have any of that kind of pressure that I put on myself, I would just like never finish anything, because I'd always be excited about something new and always be starting something new. And there's like, there's nothing wrong with that, but I think personally I get a lot of enjoyment in finishing things. And so I think there's definitely a balance to be had there, but I think I could do an even better job of just like listening to what it is that I'm excited about and passionate about, and work on that a little bit more, like follow that excitement and that joy a little bit more. So I'm going to continue, I'm going to keep that as a goal for 2023 as well. Something I mentioned also there that I think will be really central for me in 2023 is to just try to put less pressure on myself in general. That applies to my knitting and to my making, but also to like every part of my life, to my designing, to just like everything, my interactions with people, my showing up here on the internet, like on social media and everything, is just like to try to put less pressure on myself and have less expectations internally, and also try to not give in too much to external expectations as well, and just like be okay with a little more gentleness for myself, if that makes sense. Is definitely something that I'm going to be keeping, or at least try to keep central to my mindset in 2023 as well. I also want to continue my growth in tracking my photos, or tracking my knits and logging everything and taking photos and everything. I did a pretty good job of like actually making Ravelry project pages. Goal for 2023 is actually like put useful information into those project pages. I realized this the most probably when I was doing my summary video a couple weeks ago of all the garments that I knit in 2022. There were a lot of project pages that did not even have like what size I knit. Some of them didn't even have the yarn I used. I would really like to make sure I'm including also like the needle size, and like any modifications I make. Like I make pretty generous modifications when I am knitting things, and I just don't write them down anywhere. So like if I wanted to make it again, I would not know what modifications I made. So I really need to get better at that. I need to put in modifications, just note general notes. I also get a lot of questions. People will ask me like, how much ease do you have in this garment? So I'd really like to do a good job of like actually putting that in my Ravelry project pages as well, and like finished garment measurements, at least bust measurement, so that people can see that information, because I am really, really bad. Some of you probably know this. I'm really bad at responding to messages and comments and stuff on Ravelry. I do an okay job other places, but I'm really bad at Ravelry because I don't get like push notifications anywhere, and I don't check it enough, and my Ravelry inbox is kind of a mess a lot of the time, and so it's hard for me to find like the things I actually have to respond to. So if I could just put that information there so that people have access to it, then I would feel less bad about being horrible about responding to my Ravelry messages. So I'm gonna do better about that. Photos, continue growth in that area. Maybe try to take better photos of things other than garments as well. And also my stash. I really want to be able to have my whole stash on Ravelry. I'm thinking about this though, and maybe you all have advice for me, because the way that Ravelry works, if you use yarn like from your stash or whatever, and you say that you use like a partial skein, it will leave like the leftovers in your stash. And I don't know that I want that. If I were a person who is better at using my leftovers, maybe it would be nice to have all my leftovers in my stash, but I feel like it just looks too messy. Like it's hard for me to keep track of like what I actually have if I just have so many leftovers in my stash on Ravelry. So I don't know. I'm thinking about that. I'm thinking about like, do I need to just remove the leftovers so that I have a, like I want to be able to look at my Ravelry stash, and I really honestly, I want it to just show me like full skeins basically, because I'm not a person that works with leftovers very often. So I don't want the messiness of all of that on there. So I don't know, I'm thinking about that. I'm thinking about how I want to adjust, but I also don't like, I don't know how many of you use Ravelry this way, but like if you put yarn in your stash on Ravelry and then you say that you want to use it for a project, and then you put in that project how much of that yarn you used, then it will leave whatever's left as like still available in your stash. But if I don't, like if I don't want to just say like I used all of it for the project, because then I would have inaccurate yarn amounts in my Ravelry project page. So I guess I could just like delete the yarn from my stash after that or something. I don't know. I really need to spend some time thinking about this. So if you guys have thoughts about how best to do this, maybe I should just be okay with partial skeins being on my Ravelry, and like maybe I can tag the partial skein in some ways that I can like put them in a different part of, I don't know. I need to figure this out. I need to spend some time thinking about this, but I do want to do a better job of tracking my stash. And like whenever I get new yarn, just like take a picture of it and put it in my Ravelry stash. And I think part of the reason that I had trouble with this last year was because I had higher expectations for myself for like the quality of those photos. It was like, okay, I'm gonna stop and I'm gonna do a photo day, make sure I have good lighting, good backdrops, like get my camera out, do all of this, move the photos over to my computer and like do color correction edits and like whatever, and then put them on Ravelry. And that's just, I don't think that that's reasonable for me to expect that from myself. So if I get in the process of like, I'm just gonna snap a quick picture on my phone and I'm just gonna put it on my Ravelry stash and that's gonna be it, I think that's a more reasonable goal for me. So that's my hope, is that I can do that, and then maybe I can stick to it a little bit better. We'll see. But I have that goal. I also am gonna have another goal this year of pushing myself to learn new things. I think there's a lot of growth opportunities in a lot of the areas that I feel like I grew in last year, but even more so, like there's new stuff I want to learn. So for example, like I signed up for a spinning class next month in February, and I'm gonna learn how to spin. And I'd been putting it off for so long because I was nervous that, again, it would just be something that took time away from my knitting and my other crafting, and that I'd become obsessed with it, and then I would not have as much time for my other crafting. And honestly, the more I thought about it, was just like, okay, Emily, if you get obsessed with it, that means that you're happy and you're enjoying it, and like that's not a bad thing. So I decided to go ahead and do it. I actually made my first attempt at drop spindling this morning. My friend Maya lent me her drop spindle, and I got some fiber from Wee Chickadee, and it's gorgeous. I guess I can show you here. This is some of the fiber, and I had my first, I'll give you a very sneak peek. I'm very embarrassed by this, but here's a little bit of my, I don't know if I should zoom in on this, but here it is. It's pretty bad, but this was like my first, I've done this for like an hour. Like I have no practice. I'm still very, very bad, but I went from not being able to do it at all. Like I kept ripping the fiber, or like I don't even want to show you this. This was part of my first attempt, you can see like there are parts that are so thin and tightly spun, and then there are like this, you can't even characterize this as yarn. Like this is not, but this was like, this was very first attempt, which you cannot call this successful by any means. And then I went from that to like, I'm doing it, but I'm doing it poorly, which I feel like that's what this is. This is like, it's yarn, but it's bad. So I'm trying to keep my energy up. I was so tense when I was doing it that I needed to stop. So the plan is to try to do just like a little bit a day. And I'm doing some drop spindling just so that I can get used to drafting, which is a new term that I learned. Just so that I can get used to drafting before I go to my spinning class. My spinning class is gonna be on a wheel. So yeah, I want to keep learning new things. I'm going to learn to spin. Maybe I will, I don't know. I want to steek. I want to learn how to steek. I've never steeked before. If you don't know what steeking is, it's often used for like color work or cabled cardigans, but really anything that you want to like make a rip in, like you want to separate. So for techniques that are much easier or just like more comfortable to do in the round, like color work, you can knit a color work yoke, a color work sweater in the round, and then you can cut it and fasten it down using like crochet or sewing or felting or whatever. There are lots of different techniques for it, but cut it down the middle and fasten it down, and that is like steeking it. And so I've never done that before. I'm actually not a huge color work knitter, and I'm also like not gonna force myself to be. If I don't love it, then I'm not gonna do it. But I found this pattern. It's for like a cabled cardigan that is also steeked, and my friend Maya also, we have talked about doing a little steek along. We may make the same sweater and both learn how to steek together this year. So, and one of my other friends, or I think a couple of my other friends from my knit night also are thinking about steeking this year as well. So if anyone wants to steek with us, maybe we should just do like an informal steek along this year. I'm not sure, but I feel like that would be fun. But I don't know when that will happen or whatever, but I'll talk about that cardigan that I'm thinking about and those plans as well when I go through my sweater quantities. I have no idea how long I've been talking. I feel like I'm already, I thought this might be shorter than my last time I recorded because I was like, oh, you know exactly what you want to say because you did a trial run. I don't. I'm still somehow flying by the seat of my pants. Okay, and then my last goal is a stash-oriented goal. I've seen a lot of like stash down goals for this year, and I'm loving that energy. I have a pretty large stash, and you guys will see that when I start going through my sweater quantities. I wrote down all my sweater quantities, and so I split them into 3 categories. I have basically like sweater quantities of yarn. I have t-shirt quantities of yarn, so like yarns I bought with knitting some sort of like t-shirt or like short sleeve tank or whatever in mind. And then I have planned knits that I know I'm gonna knit this year even if I don't have the yarn. So with all of that together, I have 20 garments. So I have 11 sweater quantities in my stash. I have 5 t-shirt quantities, and I have 4 sweaters planned that I don't yet have the yarn for. And so those are ones, the 4 sweaters I've planned are ones that I know I will knit, or I'm almost certain I will knit, and almost certainly in 2023 because they're knits for other people. So I think I've talked about this a couple times on the podcast before, but I published my dad's sweater pattern. I knit a dad sweater for my dad and also one for myself, but I also really want to knit them for the rest of my family. So for my mom and my brother and sister at the least. And then I also kind of want to make one for my husband as well, partially because I also want to wear that one as well, and we live in the same house. So if I make one for him, then I could also wear it. So that that's part of the reason that is like a dual purpose one. And so those are the 4 projects, and I do have the yarn and have cast on, and I'm working on one of them, but the other 3, I don't have the yarn yet. But anyway, all in all, that's 20 garments, and I find it really unlikely that I will knit 20 garments in 2023. I knit 13 garments in 2022, and I guess I could have talked about this in my year summary as well, but I did do like some yardage tracking, and I ended up knitting, I think, around 18,000 yards of yarn. Earlier in the year, I was on track and had in the back of my mind that I might be able to make it to 20,000 yards in a year, and I didn't quite make that. However, I did finish a sweater, actually a fingering weight sweater. Well, I can show you a very sneak peek of it here because it just came off the blocking mats today. I finished this sweater, which is Stripes by Andrea Mowry, and I will do a full podcast episode and I'll talk about this and the other stuff I've been knitting on and everything. But I finished this in January, and I am the type of person that I count my knits when I finish them, not when I start them. So since I finished that sweater in January, I count that as a 2023 knit, not a 2022 knit. And that was quite a bit of yardage because it's a fingering weight sweater. So that would have been quite a lot to add to my yardage total for 2022. And I did knit most of that yardage in 2022. But nonetheless, that doesn't count. And so I did end up at around 18,000 yards for 2022. I don't really want to set specific like numerical goals for 2023, but I'm gonna be honest with you. I do still have them in mind because that is who I am. So I will say them, but I'm not like strictly gonna set these goals because I think if I do, like I don't want to be disappointed at the end of the year if I don't meet it. But tentatively, I will say like what I have in the back of my mind is 12 garments, which is like 1 a month. And I think that's a pace that I keep up pretty well. I would love to knit 6 pairs of socks this year because I have lots of sock yarn and I have lots of socks that I want to knit. So 12 garments, 6 pairs of socks, and if I could make it to 20,000 yards, that would be amazing. So those are just the numbers I happen to have in the back of my mind. And if I don't make that, it's not a big deal because this is not an explicit goal. But that's just what I have floating back there. But back to the stash goal. Since I have 20 garments in my stash or planned for this year, I know I'm not going to make it through all of them. And so I cannot make a stash goal that's like knit all of my stash. Like I have more than a year's worth of stash. I want to be honest, like I know that's something that, one, it's like a blessing for me to be able to have that amount of yarn, and I feel really fortunate for that, and that I'm in a situation that I can like purchase the yarn that I want. So I just want to say that here as well, like I feel really lucky and fortunate to have the yarn that I have in my stash. 2, I want to say that I think for a lot of people, having a large stash makes them really uncomfortable. And I am not super uncomfortable with having a large stash. I think there are parts of it that I like and there are parts that I don't like. Like I love being able to be really inspired by something and purchase it and not feel like hampered by the fact that like, oh no, like I'm not ready to cast on a new project, so I'm not gonna buy anything new right now. Like, and that's totally fine for folks that do it that way. Like absolutely nothing against that, but I like to be able to be like so excited and inspired by something that I can purchase it and have it on hand for whenever I'm ready for it. So that is something I like to do. I think I have said this before. I often think of yarn purchasing as a separate hobby from knitting because it's really fun to look at and admire really beautiful yarns and be able to take it home and like to have it around me and to see it and to be able to go and be inspired by it is something that I really love. So it doesn't make me super uncomfortable to have a large stash. And I know like large is super relative. Like my stash may be really large for some people, but other people may look at my stash and be like, that is nothing. So totally relative, and absolutely no judgment for me wherever you fall on the spectrum of like how much yarn you keep on hand or like how willing you are to buy yarn at different times. Absolutely no judgment from me. A couple reasons why I do want to kind of like minimize my stash a little bit. I think what is hard for me is when I buy yarn and I'm so excited about it, but I have so much other stuff I want to knit that like I know I'm not going to get to knit all the yarn that I already have and I have plans for and I'm excited about for a long time. That's like tough for me. And I think the stash is only one part of that. Another part of that is just like I can't, like my hands and my time, I just can't go fast enough. I have too many things that I love, that I'm inspired by, that I'm excited by, that I can't knit through all of them as quickly as I wish I could. And there's a lot about that that's really good. Like knitting as a process forces us to like slow down a little bit. It's not completely like immediate gratification. It takes time and effort and energy to make a garment. And I love that about it as well. But the downside is like I have so much I want to knit and I only have so much time and I only have these two hands to do it. So, but it is hard for me to have like all of this yarn that I'm about to go through, and every single one of the things I have, I'm like so excited by and I really want to make it, and like I can only do one thing at a time, and that's kind of a bummer. And so I think if I were to able to minimize my stash a little bit, I think that that would help with that feeling of like, why can't I just knit everything? Like, you know, if I had a little bit of a smaller stash, I would feel less overwhelmed by all the stuff that I want to make, that I have on hand that I can't get to yet. So I think that's a big reason. And then also just, I want to work through my stash this year because I love my stash. Like I love my yarn that I have and I want to knit it. And so that's a big part of like setting a goal like this, is because I want to actually work through my stash because I love it. So I should probably tell you what my goal is. The actual goal that I am setting for this year is I will only buy a sweater quantity of yarn after I have already knit 2 sweaters from stash. So for me, that looks like I finished this sweater this year. If I finish one more sweater, then I am able to purchase a sweater quantity this year. That doesn't mean I need to immediately go out and buy it, but before then, I'm not gonna buy any sweater quantities of yarn. So that would mean if I knit 12 sweater quantities this year, or 12 garments this year, then I would at most be able to purchase 6 sweater quantities of yarn this year, which I feel like is fair and like super reasonable. Like I feel good about that. Now there are a couple things that I'm not quite sure how to deal with. So like I have some yarn in my stash that I know I want to pair with another yarn, like hold together with another yarn. So can I buy that yarn? Does that count against this? And my feeling is no, it does not count. If it is to be held with a stash yarn, then it doesn't count as the purchase of a new sweater quantity. And you know what? I set the rules for this. So that is what I have decided in this moment, is what I've decided. So, yeah, I don't know. Let me know what you think about that goal. We'll see how it goes. I think it's gonna make things easier for me because like if I am in a situation where I would maybe want some yarn or want to purchase some yarn, like I think it'll be easy for me to just be like, if you really love this, then you can come back and get it, or get something different that you also really love when you finish your next sweater. So it's not necessarily like a you can't have this, but it's like a just wait a second until you finish your next sweater. And then like I think it's gonna force me to really think about like sweater quantities are gonna become a little bit more of like a scarce resource. And so I'm gonna make sure that I only purchase the things that I really want. And this has nothing to do with like other quantities of yarn. Like if I find sock yarn and I love it and I want to buy it, like I will do that. And that's probably bad because that probably means that I'll end up buying a lot more sock yarn, but I don't know. That's the way I've decided to think about it. So anyway, I feel like I've talked way too long in this video and I have not showed any yarn. And y'all are probably so bored of me at this point. But now let's get into the fun part. Those are the goals I have. I'm excited about it. I think it's going to be a good year. And let's talk about the sweater quantities of yarn that I have. So I mentioned I wrote them all down. I have one skein of each here that I can hold up and show you as I talk about it. And I have 11 sweater quantities, 5 t-shirt quantities. So let's go through them and I'll talk about what I'm kind of thinking, what I'm planning, and y'all can weigh in and let me know what you think, what I should knit first. If you have other ideas for some yarn that you think like another project would be better or more fun, please let me know and let's get into it. So I'm going to try to do these roughly in like order from oldest, like purchased longest ago to most recently purchased. So like how long they've kind of been in my stash. It's not going to be perfect because for a lot of these I didn't really remember exactly when I got them, but they are roughly in order. So let's start from the oldest first. I think this is the oldest sweater quantity that I have in my stash is this Rerum Natura Ulysse. The colorway is Poivre Blanc. And viewers of the podcast, longtime viewers of the podcast will remember the absolute turmoil that this sweater quantity has been through. I knit an entire body of a sweater in this yarn and then I ripped it out, and then I knit the whole yoke of another sweater in this yarn and then ripped it out. I actually haven't ripped it out. It's still like on a needle somewhere in my house. I love this yarn. This is a yarn we carry at La Mercerie, and I've worked with since then, and I really, really love this yarn. It's a 100% wool. It is really nice and light and airy. It's soft, it's not scratchy at all, and it is just really enjoyable to work with. I loved when I was knitting that sweater with it that I ended up ripping out. If you're interested in that whole process, go back, I don't know, like a couple of years. I don't know exactly where it was that I was talking about that, but basically I had gauge issues that I did not listen to my swatch, and it was a whole thing. And so like I was trying to like do a dupe for this sweater I saw on Madewell. And then I was like, okay, I'm not gonna do that anymore. I'm going to like do my own design with this yarn. And then I wasn't feeling that anymore. And now I'm feeling like I just want an easy win. And so I'm feeling like this would be a really good yarn for a DRK everyday sweater, which is a pattern by Andrea Mowry. It is a circular yoke pattern, which I had been really nervous about until I knit also this sweater, the Stripes by Andrea Mowry. It is also a circular yoke, and I feel like it fits me really well. And it's also Andrea Mowry. So I'm much more confident in a circular yoke now that I've had that success. So I think it'll be good. I think it'll be a good pattern for me. I think it'll be a great pattern for this yarn. Feels like a really good kind of like basic essential sweater. And this color I think is really beautiful too. So I can give a close-up of the color. It's a nice, just like a sandy neutral. What did I tell you about the focusing? Is it not so much better? Like, amazing. Anyway, so that's my plan for this one. My next oldest, I think, in my stash is this Alpaca Heather from Manos del Uruguay. I got this at, I think I bought this at a yarn store in Washington when I was doing the yarn store crawl, the Puget Sound yarn crawl, a couple years ago. And I have knit, I very briefly cast on a sweater in this last year, and then I did not end up finishing it and I ripped it out. But this is a blend of wool and alpaca. It feels really nice and soft, but like with alpaca, sometimes you get yarn that has like way too much drape. It's like really heavy. And this yarn does not have that feeling at all. I think it's the wool content that keeps it really nice and springy and bouncy and has like some structure to it. So I feel like it's a really perfect balance between that softness, but also having really good structure. It's like a sport weight yarn. And I have in mind, I really want to knit just like a really basic squishy cardigan with it. I originally had thought I might knit the Straya by Andrea Mowry, but without the stripes. And then I ended up, what I cast on was the Oversized Seasons cardigan, but that pattern is knit at like a worsted weight gauge with like worsted weight yarn, and this is sport weight yarn, and so I was doing some math and like knitting a different size to make it work out, and like I don't know if I really want to do that. I might, but what I really want is like probably a brioche or half fisherman's rib cardigan in this yarn, because I think I really need just like a basic gray cardigan to throw on any day on top of everything. So Alpaca Heather. The colorway for this one is, I think, just light gray, or maybe just gray. Just, yeah, just gray. Next I have, oh, okay. Next I have these two. I believe I also bought these on the Puget Sound yarn crawl a couple years ago. So same, I think I may have actually gotten it at the same shop as this one, but this is a collaboration that MadelineTosh and Shibui did. They, MadelineTosh dyed up the yarn on their Tosh Merino light base, and then Shibui did their silk cloud base, and they did a whole series of like matching colors. I got Copperleaf, very, very predictably. If y'all know me, if you've watched me before, I love dark red. Like dark red, I will absolutely go for any day of the week. And so when I saw this color in this collaboration, I knew I had to have it. I think I have maybe 3 skeins of each, and so I'm a little nervous that I don't have enough of this one for a sweater. I heard also that Shibui is going, like, is closing, and so I don't know, maybe I should try to get some more of this now before that happens, or I don't know, maybe I'll be okay. But my plan for this is also to do just a basic cardigan. For this one, I'm thinking like a stockinette cardigan. The pattern I have in mind is the Cottage cardigan by Jaqueline Cieslak. I think it would be a really good, just like basic red, kind of a statement cardigan that I can throw on top of like neutrals. I really am imagining this like around the holidays, wearing it on top of like dresses or with like dark slacks or whatever. I think like a really nice dark red cardigan would be perfect for like the winter and everything. The Cottage cardigan I know does have a really deep armhole, so I'm wondering like yardage wise if that's the best bet, or if I should do something that's a little bit closer in the armhole. So we'll see. I will have to consider that, but yeah. And I think I said this, maybe the colorway for this is Copperleaf on both Tosh Merino Light and Shibui Silk Cloud. So that's the next one. Next. Okay, so next I have this beautiful yarn. This is actually, I think it's like a one-of-a-kind from the Lovestitch. It's called Latte, which I think is another colorway that she carries, or she had in her shop for a while, Tiara. But this was, she called this one Latte Tonal. I don't know if it's just like a little bit more tonal than her normal Latte colorway. And I fell in love with it. She had only 4 skeins on DK and I bought them all. Really, really beautiful color. It's this like, the depth of color in this is honestly like astounding. You can see the like lighter and darker bits. It's just really beautiful. So I bought this, I believe about a year ago. And in the last year, I have come to the realization, sorry, I feel like I have hair in my mouth. I have come to the realization that I don't think this color, while I love it so much, I don't think this color is my favorite on me, like on my body. I think colors that are like a little bit too close to my skin color, I don't love on my body. So I really love this yarn though, and I really want to knit with it. So I was talking to my sister because even though she is my sister, we have pretty different skin complexions. She's not nearly as pale as I am. So I was talking to her about if she would be interested in a garment in this color, and she seemed interested. So what I think I'll probably do at some point is I'll knit up something for her in this yarn. We talked about patterns, and I think we don't have like a specific pattern picked yet, but I think we're probably gonna do some kind of cabled sweater, like a cabled pullover, maybe even we talked about maybe just doing this one. This is, I should have said earlier what this is. This is the Piazza tee by Sari Nordlund. I know it's not a tee, that's because I made the sleeves full length. And the yarn is Ampersand Fibers Jenson DK in the Grisaille 01 colorway, which is a yarn that is only available at La Mercerie, which is the yarn store that I work at. So that's this. But how beautiful would that, like how stunning would this be in this color also? I feel like it would just be really, really nice. I think the lace and cable pattern would show up beautifully in this yarn, and then my sister and I would get to match. So maybe this, maybe some other cabled pattern, but some sort of cabled, probably a Sari Nordlund cabled pullover in this yarn for my sister. So there's that. What is next? Oh, okay. I have, over here, I have 3 skeins of this yarn, which is from Mel of Big Little Yarn Co., who is an absolute angel. And honestly, I had to get this because Mel and I collaborated on some kits for the Stripey Turtle Tank when I released that a couple years ago. And one of the kits that she put together had this color, which is Yume. I knew that I had to have some for myself. So I was able to grab 3 skeins of it. This is on her Trusty sock base, which is a 75-25 or 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon, 4-ply sock, just like a standard kind of sock yarn. And I bought 3 skeins of it, and my plan is to hold a mohair with it, or like a Sari alpaca and silk, to make a dad sweater for myself. So several of my testers and other folks that I've seen since then have knit the dad sweater using a like fingering weight and a mohair held together, and I think it makes the most beautiful fabric, and the sweater is just stunning, like really gorgeous. And so I really want to make myself a mohair version because I think it would be really beautiful. And I have in mind this one specific color of mohair silk from Knitting for Olive. It's called Cloud, and this color is called Yume, and that means dream. So I feel like dream and cloud together would just be really perfect. So this color I am really excited about, and I think with, it's like a really pale creamy, like cream pink color Cloud is, I think would just be really perfect. So that is that. Next up, I have this one, which is Grenouille, which is one of my very favorite dyers of all time. I actually did not purchase this one. This one is yarn that a friend of mine gifted to me. She was like destashing some yarn and wanted to pass this one along. It is a fingering weight merino and linen blend, so 90% superwash merino and 10% linen. It's a single ply fingering weight base, and the colorway is Inky Depths, which is just a stunning blue, and I love blue so much. And honestly, I'm undecided about what to do with this. This one, since I don't have a plan for it, this one may be a while before I knit with this, because I'm just not sure what I want to do. I was thinking about maybe doing, I knit the Marble Mount sweater by Joji Locatelli, and I really love the way that fit. And so I was thinking about, it's a circular yoke sweater in a fingering weight yarn that has lace panels in the yoke as well. And I was thinking about maybe doing another version without the lace, and so it would be just a pretty plain circular yoke. I think it would be really pretty in this yarn as well. So that's something I'm thinking about, but I may hold off on this one. If you have other thoughts on what would work well in this yarn, I'm definitely open to suggestions for that. So Inky Depths, Grenouille, merino linen. Okay, next up, we really need to cruise. So I have some unspun yarn, which is, I know, like a really big thing in the knitting community right now. And I have never worked with unspun yarn before, so I'm really excited about the idea of working with this hopefully this year. I believe mine is Nudiden, but I don't know a lot about it. I actually got it from a destash that Jess from La Mercerie was doing. She had a couple of, I think she did like a club or something, and she had a couple sweater quantities of this yarn, one in this color and one in like a orangey yellow color that I was also considering, but I ended up deciding to go with this one, which is just this beautiful like grayish blue. Yeah, really nice. So I really love this yarn, and I am not 100% sure about what I want to make with it. I know there are lots of patterns. I think I will probably do an Ozetta pattern with this because I know she has done a ton with unspun yarn. So I'm thinking about maybe the Miles shirt jacket, which is a like kind of oversized shirt jacket pattern. It has a really cool like curved hem detail, and it also has these really nice patch pockets on the front. And I love to wear shackets like that, especially like in the fall and winter. I wear one like almost every day. So I feel like knitting one for myself would be really fun. So I'm thinking in this color too, it would be really nice. I really don't understand a lot about how to work with this. I don't understand a lot about the gauge. Like I don't know what gauge this is. Is like all unspun yarn the same gauge? Like, do I need to hold this with another yarn? Like, I don't know what I'm doing with this. So it'll definitely be a learning experience. That can be a new thing that I learn in 2023 is what is unspun yarn and how do I work with it. But I have, I think 6 plates of this. Don't know how much plate is. Don't know if this is enough for the sweater I want to make with it. Honestly, don't know anything about it, but I'm thinking maybe try to figure this out and do the Miles shirt jacket from Ozetta with this yarn. Okay, next. Okay, now we're into yarns that I got at Rhinebeck. So I have just a couple of sweater quantities left that I got when I was in New York last fall. First up, I got 3 skeins of this stunning yarn from when I was at India Untangled. The Wandering Flock had a booth there, and I had to come home with this yarn. It's just so beautiful. I got 3 skeins. This is their mohair silk base, 80% kid mohair, 20% silk, and the colorway is mother of pearl, and it's just stunning. Like, how beautiful is that? And I'm gonna be honest with you, this really reminds me of the album cover for Lover by Taylor Swift. I know that is much more pink, but I don't know, something about like the vibe of this yarn, it really feels like that album cover to me. If you don't know what I'm talking about, look it up, or like maybe I'll put it on the screen here. But yeah, I really love this yarn. I don't know yet what I'm gonna do with it. I'm thinking that I will probably hold it with like a fingering weight yarn and do some sort of basic pullover. The one I'm thinking about maybe right now is the Putney sweater, and I'm so sorry, I don't remember the designer. It came out last year. It's a pretty basic pullover, but it has a like balloon type sleeve, which I think would be really nice and dreamy with this yarn. But I'll probably hold it with like a solid like cream colored yarn just so that it doesn't get too busy. But yeah, I really love the colors. It feels very dreamy and like mermaidy and everything. So yeah, that is Mother of Pearl. Next, I also got in New York, this one I actually got at Woolen Folk at the Brooklyn General Store booth. They had some really great yarns, but they also had some beautiful yarns from the Farmer's Daughter. One of them is this yarn that I got. It is the Farmer's Daughter Oh Dang, which is their Sari alpaca and silk base. It's a 74% Sari alpaca, 26% silk, lace weight yarn. The color is Pretty Shield, and oh my goodness, I could not love this color more. I'm so obsessed with this color. This yarn feels precious to me because I want to find the perfect project for this yarn. It's another one that I'm pretty likely, I only got 3 skeins of it, and now I'm looking back and thinking that I should have gotten, I think they had like 6 there, or maybe 5. Like maybe I should have just bought all 5 of them, or I should have got 4 or 5 at least, because I love it. I love this color. But because I only have 3 skeins, I will likely hold it together with like a fingering weight yarn of a similar color. And part of me wants to just do like another basic sweater, because I think a basic sweater in this color would be amazing. I think it would really let the yarn sing, like it would be so beautiful. But I also have thought of some other stuff that would be really fun in it. Like I'm thinking maybe a Daydreamer by Andrea Mowry would be really pretty. But also I've heard that that sweater is kind of annoying to knit. Not annoying, like there's nothing wrong with the pattern, but like the sleeves are knit in like reverse stockinette, so you have to purl a ton, which like is fine, but not my favorite thing, I guess. And there's just like lots going on with the sweater, so it would definitely, I think, be a labor of love. So for that reason, I'm a little bit unsure about that pattern for this, or whether I want to just do something more classic looking for this yarn. I'm not sure, but if you have ideas, let me know. I think it has to be, I hate to do this because I don't want to like hold on to it forever and never knit with it, but I think it has to be something really special because I'm so in love with this color. Like I think it's so perfect. So that's that one. And then my actual Rhinebeck yarn. So this is the only sweater quantity that I got at New York Sheep and Wool itself, and it is from Harrisville Designs. It is their Daylights line, so they have both a Daylights and a Nightshades, and it's a Cormo wool yarn that is, for the Daylights line, it's mostly like a cream base, but they put little bits of color in it, and so they have different ones. This one is Bloodshot, which has little bits of red, like reddish pink in it, which is so beautiful. And then sorry, Norman is, Norman, what are you doing? Hi, hello, okay, hi. Oh my goodness. We are also keeping a friend's dog with us this week, and so they are causing mayhem together. But what I was saying is the Nightshades line is like a black base with like little bits of color in it. So they have different ones that have different colors in it. This is like the pink one. And this is the one I think I want to use to steek. I think this yarn would be really great for steeking. And the pattern that I have in mind is a Kate Davies pattern. I believe it's called, I don't know how to pronounce this. I think like Hirne, H-I-R-N-E is the spelling of the pattern. And it has these really cool like geometric cable designs in the yoke, and then it is steeked. So that one I think would be really fun to learn to steek. I think with this yarn it would be really fun. I think this color would be perfect for like a really light, basic, geometric cable design. I think you'd be able to see it really well in this yarn, and I think this yarn would steek well. So that's the tentative plan, but we'll see if I get persuaded by something else. So that was my Rhinebeck yarn. And then my last sweater quantity of yarn, full sweater quantity, is this that I got from Grenouille's, like I think she has like an anniversary or end of year sale every year, and so toward the end of last year I got this yarn. This is her Surrey Alpaca silk base. It's 74% baby Surrey Alpaca and 26% silk. It's a lace weight, and the colorway is Knocked Music, which is one of my very favorite colors of all time. I have knit with this color multiple times before, and I am so in love with it. It is the most gorgeous, like dark blue-green, like teal color. And I had to get it on this beautiful fluffy yarn. So I have, I think, 3 or 4 skeins of it on this yarn, or on this base. And I really want to hold it with something else to make, like, I'm thinking a nice oversized, super cozy sweater. So the Port sweater by Ozetta is actually coming out, I think this week, in a couple of days. And I'm really thinking about maybe that would be a good pattern for this. I'm not sure what other yarn I would hold with it. I'm thinking maybe, I don't know, maybe if I could get just this same yarn, this same color in like her DK weight base, I maybe would just go for that. The other one I'm considering is Rerum Natura, has some really good dark tealy blues, so I might try to get a yarn from there and hold this with it to make that sweater. I don't remember what yarn weight the sweater uses. I think it's like a worsted or an Aran weight, so I would have to hold it with something pretty heavy, but I think it would knit up really nice and quick. It has a nice tall neck and a really cool like drop shoulder detail here, and I think in this color it would just be like the ultimate super cozy pullover sweater. So that is what I'm thinking for this, and yeah, that's all of my full sweater quantities. So when I go through them, I'm just like, I'm so excited about them, and that's part of the reason that I want to try to minimize my stash too, is because like I have such good stuff here that I really want to work through because it's so good. Like, I don't know, past me did an excellent job of picking yarn, because this yarn is all really good. So I'm excited. I'm really excited about the stuff I'm gonna knit this year, and I wish that I could just knit it all now, but I know that I'll enjoy the process as I go through. So that is the full sweater quantities. Let's go quickly through the t-shirt quantities. So a couple, I only have 5 of these. When we got Ovis Etc. at La Mercerie, I was so obsessed with this yarn and with the color palette that I bought. I bought actually 3 t-shirt quantities across a couple of different bases. So Ovis Etc., they specialize in really cool non-superwash yarns. A couple of their bases that we carry at La Mercerie have Rami in them, which is a new fiber to me. It's a plant fiber, and I actually already knit a t-shirt this year with one of their yarns in their fingering weight, but I got 2 more t-shirt quantities in their sport weight, which is called Herba. And I haven't knit with them yet, but these are the 2 that I got. So this one is called Curry, and this one is called Favorite Jeans. And I had to get this one because this color is almost identical to a pair of jeans that I own. And so like I had to do it. Like, you can't not. But I'm not sure exactly what I'll knit with each of them. I have a couple of t-shirt patterns on my wish list. One is the new t-shirt. It's like a simple t-shirt in the 52 Weeks of Easy Knits book that just came out like a month ago. The pattern is called Give Me the Tea, and it is in a beautiful, like, nice pale yellow color, and it kind of makes me want to make a yellow one as well with this yarn. I think would be really fun. Also, Ozetta came out with a new t-shirt pattern last year called the Miles Tee, which is like a basic tee, but it has a really cool like eyelet detail on the back. I feel like that could be really beautiful in this blue color, so that's one I'm thinking about. Also, like a Jessie May basic t-shirt. She has the So Summer shirt or like the outline tee. I think both of those would be really fun. So I know some of those are like fingering weight designs and some are like sport weight or whatever, but I feel like I could probably make it work with these yarns for any of those patterns. So I have that. I also have 2 balls of Rerum Natura Robinson, which is a blend of recycled cotton and wool from Rerum Natura. And I love this yarn so much. And I actually started a new design with it, and I ended up kind of giving up on it a little bit after having some trouble getting it to come to life the way that I was hoping. And so I set it aside, but I'd really love to come back to it. Not necessarily with that design. Maybe I'll end up knitting something else with it. I'm not sure, but I really love this yarn, and I want to make like a summer top with this yarn. I really, really want to. The colorway for this one is Nougat, and all of the yarns in this line, both Robinson, which is the heavier weight, and there's a lighter weight Candide as well, are all naturally dyed. So I think that's really fun too, and I'll give you like a little bit of a close-up of it here. But a really nice neutral like Odie color I think would be perfect for like a 0 to negative ease like tank top thing. I am really feeling that idea in this yarn. And then I also have this stunning yarn that I bought when I was in Arizona last year. So I, toward the end of my time with the Mariners, I spent 3 weeks in Arizona for spring training. And I went to a yarn store there, and one of the yarns they had was from like a local dyer to that area, less traveled yarn. And they had this color. The colorway is Jade. And this is just on their like normal sock base, but I cannot express to you how obsessed I am with these speckles. Like, I just couldn't believe, I've never seen speckles like this before in my life. They're so little. And yeah, it's just like blue and red speckles. I don't know, it almost looks like dye breaking. Like it's beautiful. Like, I don't even know. But I'm normally not drawn to green like this, but the speckles were just so good that I had to buy it. And they only had 2 skeins, so I just bought the two skeins that they had. But I feel like this deserves to be made into like a garment of some kind. I think it's just so beautiful. Like, I don't know, I guess I'm just gonna sit here and stare at this yarn because it's so stunning, but like how is it so beautiful? I don't know. But yeah, I'll probably just make like a basic t-shirt with that as well. I don't know what pattern yet, but I don't know, some sort of like basic stockinette t-shirt for this yarn. And then my last one, I can't believe it. We're gonna make it all the way through. I have 2 skeins of, this is also Grenouille Merino linen. So this is the same yarn as this one that I shared earlier, but I only have 2 skeins of it. And the colorway is Lamp Black, which absolutely is my favorite gray of all time. I have knit with this color multiple times before as well, and I love it so much. I can't tell you how much I love this color. And I want to just make a basic t-shirt with this as well. I'm actually considering a new design with this one. I have ideas for making kind of a pretty basic t-shirt, and I have ideas for a multicolored version, but I think doing a solid color version in this yarn would be really nice as well. I know it's a dark color, so like maybe not the best for a t-shirt, but I don't know. I think it would be fine, and I would wear a t-shirt in this color for sure. So yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Maybe I will knit with this, and that may be coming up soon. So, but I really love this one. I love this color. I love this yarn, and I think it'll make a great t-shirt as well. So that is it. Finally made it all the way through. That's all the yarn I have. Well, that's a lie. That's not all the yarn I have, but that's all the sweater quantities and t-shirt quantities of yarn that I have. I mentioned I'm planning to make a couple of other dad sweaters for my family as well. And so yeah, we're just gonna see what all I can get through. Like what of this yarn am I gonna make it through this year? I hope a lot of it, because I really love a lot of it. But I'd love to hear from you all what you think I should cast on next. Right now I'm working on a dad sweater for my mom, and then I'm thinking maybe some new design stuff. But other than that, I don't know. I'm really feeling maybe the first one I showed, doing the DRK everyday sweater next in this yarn. I feel like this one has been in my stash the longest, and I really could use like a nice easy win. So I'm thinking maybe this would be next, but you all tell me what you think I should knit next. I'm sure in the spring I'm gonna be all in on like t-shirts and stuff. So maybe before the cold weather leaves us, I could try to get some nice cozy sweaters in before then. So I don't know. I'm also feeling really excited about this yarn, but I don't have the yarn I need to hold with it to do the port sweater that I was thinking. So this one I guess I can't do next unless I get the yarn real quick to hold with it. But I don't know. I'm feeling really energized. I was actually pretty out of it at the beginning of this year, like a week or 2 ago. I think just recovering from the flu, but also just, I don't know, there was something about it being a new year. I often feel really energized at the start of a new year, but I was feeling really out of it for some reason. And so I was like, there were a couple days I didn't even knit. It was probably just like recovering from the flu, but I did not have great knitting mojo, and so I was just not excited about the stuff that I was knitting or the stuff I was going to be knitting next, and I'm really feeling that again. I'm feeling that excitement and energy again. I think it helps to go through like all the yarns I have and get really excited about them, and yeah, I think it's going to be a good year of knits. I'm looking at like the palette I have here, and it's all yarns that I really love, and I can't wait. I'm really excited to dive in. I can't wait. So yeah, thanks for tuning in and listening to all of this. I'm sorry it was really lengthy. This is definitely longer than the first time I recorded it, so I'm not sure why that is or what more I had to say, but I really appreciate you tuning in, and I'd love to hear about y'all's goals and your plans and any thoughts you have about the yarn that I have here. And I promise I'll be back. My hope is with a normal podcast episode next week, so I can talk about all the things I've been knitting on and finished and everything. I'll talk about this sweater more and everything that I've been working on basically for the last month. I feel like it's been since I've done a normal podcast episode. So yeah, thanks so much, and I hope you all do lots of knitting and watch lots of baseball. I guess there's not really baseball right now except for Winter League, so watch baseball if that's your thing, and I hope you have a great week. Bye.